Okie dokie, right, here we are on 3 camera setup. We've got close-ups, and what have we got here? We have got a large, what is this? This is a Matt Heafy Epiphone 7-string Les Paul style guitar with, I suppose you call it a Les Paul, is it Les Paul? Yeah, it's a Les Paul custom MKH. 7-string, you know, big wide thing, and nice, quite low action on this baby. That's an interesting thing. Yes, anyway, we'll come to that in a minute. We've got EMGs and we've got an active thing. We appear to have a pop missing knob. Knob is the word I'm looking for. Don't know where that is, but hey. Right, this is a guitar already with a, oh Christ, more things to find. Scheisse. I get more light on this the more you see. Sorry, I've been profane. Right, see those little cracks? Lovely jubbly. Right, this was the victim of appallingly bad packaging, I'm sorry to say. And it's arrived here, and let's pull off some chunks. Oh. I mean, you know, straight through to the wood, I'm afraid. We've got some big chunks knocked right off there, as you can see. This was bashed up against something in transit, and it didn't survive for the simple reason that it was packed terribly. And it's a shame because Pete was looking for this for quite some time. We've got it. I think he's agreed a partial refund with the seller, and I'm going to do my best to fill those holes and just hopefully check out there's nothing seriously wrong with any of these other little cracks. So anyway, just giving you a sort of close-up look. I've no idea whether there's any battery. Yeah, there's a battery in there. We might just work long enough to test the pickups. We've got some cracking in the finish on the back here, which goes there and there. This is a big through neck, you know, glued in neck joint, and it's been stood on or put a massively heavy load on in the transit, which is a real pity. When I first saw it, the first thing I noticed was the broken switch, which is possibly still working. I'll check it out in a minute. And then I kind of put it back in its box for the time being, and then I noticed that the next day where it's been bashed right on the edge there. So I'm going to do my best to fill that hole with some glue boost in a few days time, but I'm not really going to concentrate on that for now. So let's just call this close-ups over for the time being, and welcome to 2 camera shoot. Yeah, so what are we going to do? Well, I mean, I'm kind of nervous about this neck joint now. What I don't want to find is that there's something actually moving. Not that I can really feel anything. I don't think anything terrible is going to happen. Ugh. I don't know how much of this I'll be able to fill or sand out and colour and fill. We could try that. I'm just going to do my best to make it smooth over these little dings. There's a few little things here, including the bash on this side, which kind of crushed the finish in here. And I have a feeling it might make more sense to pull out some of these other broken bits as well. But we shall see. It's quite a bit of wood to, you know, a bit of filler. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to mix some black filler, some black glue boost, and make that work. To be honest, I don't think we won't take all that out. What we will do is just fill the depression at some point, and then we'll just make it smooth. Here we might just have to paint this little bit, maybe sand it and paint it. I was considering that what we've got here is a very low action, and I wondered whether there's some sort of movement in the neck that's made it so low. That was my first worry. So yeah, it's a horrible tale of just carelessness, really. Unforgivable carelessness, really. Okay, so why have we got this in here at all? Well, this is going to become a 6-string, ultra-wide 6-string guitar. So it's a formula that I've done before, and also done one just recently for Pete, using last time a Schecter Hellraiser 7-string. So this one is going to be the Matt Heafy 7-string down to 6-string. And so what we're basically doing is we're using a 7-string guitar and making a very wide 6-string for somebody with enormous hands, or very big hands. And it's just often the first time that somebody gets to play, yeah, often the first time they'll get to play because their hands are too big. Okay. Okay, these are, that's working, the switch is working, missing knob is not a big deal, we'll find that one. We've got a little scratch here, but it's nothing serious. What I think this is going to warrant, let's undo this for now. So had this arrived in good condition, it would have been a pretty straightforward job. Really a duplicate of what I did on the last one for Pete, which is to remove the original bridge, which is a 7-string tunematic bridge. Remove that, pull the posts, oh hello there, 2 camera, I can't get over it. Pull the posts, fill, re-drill, put the new bridge in, put the new nut in. So I'm going to still do that, but I think the way this is looking is I think I'm probably going to need to strip this. Once I've got the new position for the bridge, I think I'm going to strip this down to nothing, get all the wiring out, so then I can repair the finish as much as I can and then buff out the body at the end of it. So I think for now I'm going to start with the straightforward stuff, which is, let's leave the strings on, because I'm gonna, well, actually I don't want that one on, let's get rid of that one. I'm going to concentrate, as I say, on the geometry bit first. So making sure we've repositioned the bridge, and then once I've done that, without worrying about anything else, I can do any fret work on here. These frets are okay, they're not very low, they've got quite a bit of life in them, so I'm quite pleased about that. These strings are kind of in the wrong place for the time being, so I think my best bet will be to take them right off for now, or leave them attached to the bridge, because what we'll end up doing is putting them through different holes. Stop bar. We'll use the same stop bar as I did with the Schecter. There was the original 7 holes through body string holes at the end there, and I used 3 on either side and left the middle one empty. I think what we'll do is we'll use these 3 here and those 3 on that side, and leave the furthest one on the top side here unused. So yeah, it will be a case of keeping it together for the time being to get the geometry worked out, but after that I think it will be stripped down to nothing to give me a chance of fixing up as much of the finish as possible. And when I say fixing, what I mean is, I don't mean a sort of refinish to a factory standard, because that's kind of difficult. That's very difficult to do. Realistically, I would have to do the whole thing. Now, at last I suppose I have the paint system in the other room to do it. However, I don't have a black paint compound yet, so I don't really know. I really haven't even tested it, so I'm not really keen to do that anyway, even though it would be a, it'd be a very difficult job to go over all of this, strip it back and stuff. So let's get this one out of the way, because that's no good. Just come in now, and a pipe in the other toilet out there is broken, so there's water piddling down from somewhere up here. I've set Roger, the site owner, on fixing it somehow. Yeah, so this will be an interesting challenge. So need to keep everything where it is. I'm going to need to get these. The first challenge is, can I get these posts out? How are they fixed? How are you fixed? And I think I'm going to end up using a mixture of plywood, rubber, foam to do some levering action, which is always a good way of doing it. It's a little bit unscientific, and if a chap had more proper tools, then perhaps he wouldn't be doing it quite so crudely, but I don't, so I am. Let's get some ply for the job. Let's get block to rotate on. Block. Oh, that might work. A sort of rounded piece. We shall see. So the challenge is, as always, getting the getting these rather king-sized thingies out, and that's not going to be too difficult, so we have to do a longer run. So it's this sort of rotation thing. We'll see if we can encourage it to come out. We don't know. We might need to put some clamps. If this has been glued in, we could be in trouble. I sort of dreaded that being the case. Hello, two cameras. Right, let's do a clamp. Yeah, I've always not wanted that to happen, but it may well be the case, in which case we would probably drill. Which we don't want to have to do. So I'm going to use the old bits here, those things, bushings, to give me some purchase like that. We really want the sort of longest range pull. That is quite firmly in place. Yeah, if it's been glued, I'm going to be in for fun. Like I say, that potentially we'll end up drilling it out, which probably means we'll end up with a bigger fill, which I don't want to do. This fill is, on this one, it's probably the same as the other one, which is probably an 11mm thing. Okay, what I sometimes have used in the past is this thing here, as a sort of way of hooking in under there, but with pickups there, there's not a lot of room. You sort of go in under this little bit here, but to get access to that, I'd have to take the pickups out, which I'm going to do anyway. Let's see if there's enough room to bring them out. Very safely, there you are. It's a used guitar, and you wouldn't be expecting it to be concourse ready, I suppose they would call it in car terms, but at the same time, now it's got that damage, we might as well, since I'm going to want to buff that area, I've got the buffer in the back there, might as well kind of take everything off at some point and then treat it all as one thing, needing a good polish out. and then put it all back together again. There you can come out, my little friend. Give me your, that one. There's in there. I'm already missing one. It's attached to the screwdriver, probably. The electric driver. Okay. Right. See how much room this gives us. Oh yeah, fair bit. Okay. So my ideal scenario would be to get this under here like that at some point. Question is, how much room have we got? Not an awful lot. Just get it in there like that. There's not a lot of leverage I've got. Ideally it wants to be right on there. You don't want to move. Let's take this off here. The little dots are always up on these EMGs, just in case you were wondering. The little contacts, dots. Right. How are we going to do this? I can't think of any clever ways of easing out. I've got a screwdriver there, which is about the biggest bladed one. Maybe I've got another one in the other room. We've got, if we haven't got a screwdriver, we have got a file which we could use. It's a chisel which is big and flat. File to bite into the thing we're using it with, which isn't a problem. Chisel, stay there. So we could get a bit more spread of leverage into here, like this. So the closer we are, the more vertical it goes. Ah, yay! Woohoo! That's the way. Thank you. Why, thank you. Let's put this under here. Have a go at this one. Well, that's not so bad. Now on this one, I'm also going to be looking out for a bridge grounded wire. Hey, thank you again. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm happy with that. Let's put these away. Yeah. Didn't find a ground wire on the bridge. Oh, it hasn't got one on this one either. So there must be some deal about grounding the bridge with this kind of active pickup that I don't understand or know about, but I can't quite figure it out. Even if I'm wrong, I think I like to ground it just to be on the safe side. Put some in the back. Rid of these bits of wood and my rubber foam bits. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Okay, so let's find the bits, spare parts, new parts for this. We have some left over from the last job, but the main component in making this 7 to strict string conversion, there's a spare one, see? The main component is it's the Schaller bridge. It's called the Stm Guitar Bridge, STM in black, and it's an adjustable width bridge which allows me to use it here and then dial all the widths out, strings out width-wise, so we can use a 7-string span, if you like, for the purposes of a extra wide 6 string, which you can't get in any other way. I mentioned on the last video I did for Pete, which isn't up yet, so nor is this one. There's another chap called Mark, who up country somewhere makes these sorts of conversions for his customers, and he does it in a slightly less expensive way. In other words, he will use the original bridge and convert it to, he'll use the saddles on there and kind of make new notches and make them work as a 6 string. This STM, Schaller STM bridge, it has got this extra wide width. It's got this wide width capability, which when you sort of dial in the full width and then spread the strings out, gives you a really nice span, taking the strings outwards to the edge of this. So it's a really nice conversion. And of course it's a sort of tunematic style, although it has smaller style posts, so we have to fill and re-drill new holes. And to help that on the way, I've got a converted Wilkinson bridge that I'm using to mark the exact position. Meanwhile, we've got some vintage mahogany posts that I've made up, and they're too big for this one. So this is a different size. That's interesting. Yep, they're too big, so I'm going to have to make some more. Fair enough. That's a shame. I assumed they were the same size. I thought 11 was a bit odd. These are going to be 12, aren't they? That's not what's going to happen. Yeah, 12. So what I'll probably end up doing is do a 13mm post. What's that called? Plug cut. 13mm plug cut, which I've put over here. Some there. Where do I put them? Come on now. Somewhere over here. Anyway, I've got some plug cutters which I will use. I know where they went in here. So I'll make a 13mm plug, because I don't think I've got a 12mm one. Where did I put them? Where did I put them? Oh no, come on, where's the third? It's not down there. They're not in there. They're not in there. Thinks out loud. Brain not working very quickly. Where are the plug cutters? Not in here. Okay. So in this mess that I call the workshop, I have put them somewhere and now can't find them, but I will. So hey, look, this is now sort of sunk a bit out of line. Let's go to there. Right, so I'm still on the lookout for the plug cutters, because I'll need to cut some new wood. They're not there, they aren't here, they're not on the side here. They wouldn't be on the side there for any good reason. So I have disappeared them, which is annoying because I'm going to have to stop the video, go on a hunt, find them. Probably what I'll do is I'll cut the plug out off camera because it's smoky and noisy, and I'll make a couple of plugs and then I will fit them up ready to skim them down to the right size. Okay, I'll accept defeat. Let's kill this for a minute. I have 2 vintage mahogany plugs, which are a little bit too thick. So here's my technique. It's called wood turning for beginners. Question is, do we know when we've got to the right size? Well, we go like this. We go, and if we need a little bit of a bevel on that end, we can put one on. So we can see whether we fit in or not. Quite a way off yet. So that's how we do it, and it's just a boring process. hello, of sanding these down. Eventually they come out quite flat. You can measure them with your measury things. There you go, look, they're starting to fit in there now. We can just sort of see it's a little bit tight at this end, so I'll take a bit more off the back. This is a really neat little way of doing it. If you haven't got a dowel of the right size, wow, nearly there. It's really hard to judge. You don't want to get this stuck, but you also want it to work. So, more now, I've just had some Thai noodles out of a pot. You can see I'm sort of guessing really, but as soon as it's close to fitting, I'm going to call it quits. We can, if we want to see if we're vastly off at one end compared to the other, we can check it with this. So we got 11.99 and we got 12.06, so we're a little bit chunkier at the base still, which would get it stuck halfway down. So let's take a bit more off this end. So 11.9, I measured it at 12, so 11.98, almost there, a tiny bit more, and I reckon 11.95 will give us enough space to get it plugged in. So I had a very sweet little exchange. Right, that's loose, but then it stiffens up. Had a very sweet exchange this afternoon. The phone went while I was at home, lining up, getting ready to come up here. And I drilled a hole. Sorry, there you are. Drilled a hole. And what I'm going to do is carefully throw this onto there. And throw this onto here. And we've got to try and do it without splitting the whole piece, but also in such a way that it runs smooth. There you go, perfect. Now obviously too big. Yeah, so I had a phone call, and now I don't often get phone calls about guitar work. 12.7, 12.5, so a fair bit to go down. So I got this phone call, and it was an elderly sounding lady, and she asked me if I had any guitars for sale, which I responded, well, not exactly. I don't normally have guitars for sale. And she sounded a bit disappointed. Now, I realized that the reason she made this call was more than likely because my Google business listing shows Real Life Guitars as a guitar shop, because cleverly Google doesn't allow you to say anything else. So you're either a guitar shop or you're not. So she's come through, the lady's come through thinking I'm a guitar shop and wants to know about buying a guitar. Anyway, rather than sort of go, no, sorry love, don't sell guitars, hang up, I sort of inquired, you know, was she, I think somehow it came up, she said she was an elderly lady looking to start playing again. And I thought, right, well, I'll talk to you. So I talked to her, and it turns out she's 70 years old, and she's, with lockdown and everything, she wants to start playing again. She played years and years and years ago when she was young, and I asked her what kind of guitar, and we established it was a nylon strung classical guitar back in the 60s. Anyway, we were talking about the 60s, and turns out she is a distant relative of Paul McCartney. Used to go to the Cavern and used to hang out with Billy Fury, and basically lived in Liverpool in the late 50s and early 60s. So great little chat. Anyway, it turns out that within the space of about, I suppose, half an hour, 20 minutes chatting, we had a nice rapport, and she's more than happy for me to find her. She wants an electric guitar and a little amplifier, and something she totally gets. She totally got straight away the idea of having it set up so it was very low and light and would stay in tune. So went from kind of, no, I don't have any guitars, to, well, I'll tell you what, I'll find you one. And I found out she likes country music these days, so we thought, okay, well, the Telecaster's got a nice single coil, clean tone, which will, you know, be in keeping with the look and the sound of country music. And so I just, you know, said, what I'll do is I'll find you a couple of possibles, and we'll go from there. So it was very sweet, and I just really like the fact that, well, a little bit of, not a cheat exactly. I jumped ahead. I turned the cameras all off, and then I had a sort of moment of, oh, let's just get this bit done. So I ended up positioning and drilling the new bridge, and I'm fine. It's happy, and of course I've got to do the fill ends and paints and stuff. But basically, that's how it's going to sit. It's going to sit like that, and it's actually a better spread down the neck than the Schecter, which, in other words, the Schecter had quite a lot of space on the either side. This one spreads out quite nicely down there. If anything, it's quite, well, it's close to the edge down here, but I'm okay with that. It's enough. It's not going to fall off unless you push really hard upwards, which nobody ever does. So a little bit of trimming here, a little bit of tidying up this stuff tomorrow, and then fret leveling, and then I will sort of strip it all back out to get on with the repairs and stuff. So it's quite a bit of relief in there just now. I don't know how well you can see. It's practically impossible to see neck relief down in the camera anyway. Maybe. Yeah, you can see a bit of curvature. Anyway, so that's it for tonight. So I'm going to take off. But yeah, we've got the sort of basics done. And I'll just leave that in overnight, and then we'll come back to it. All right, see you soon. Which I can, once it's dried, I can actually kind of scrape it without spreading it any further. So it's drillable, scrapable, but you can see there's a little bit to trim back, but that's filled the bit that was otherwise open, and then we can paint over that bit. And then by the time we put that back on there like that, it will look pretty cool. You'll hardly notice much of a gap. I mean, it'll be there obviously, but it'll be painted black to mostly match the surrounds. Okay, so that's the close-up. For the purpose of inspection, let's just paint glue residue for a minute, don't worry about that. That's the trimmed back studs in place. They will set overnight. We'll put the lid on our nitrocellulose. This is actually, it was originally Rustin's thinners, but it ended up coming out of a industrial size thing. I'm going to put my last little smidgen of this quick steel stuff in its pot. You can get about 3 of these tubes for about 15, 13 pounds, something like that. It's really worth having it around. It's a good stuff. Right, the close-up. That was loud enough. Sorry about that. It's like in the old days, they used to have that clapperboard thing so they could synchronize up the sound, and that's kind of where I'm stuck at. Anyway, so what I've got is I've got a little bit of a quick wooden frame going on there. So it gives me a chance to put the camera and the magic arm up at this end. And it also allows me, theoretically, oh, hello. Hello, handsome. It gives me a chance to close up, zoom in on this end as well with that arm, because it'll get down to about here. Sorry, here. Anyway, so we've got plenty of different views, but I just fancied a change. trouble is I probably need a solid mount at this end, in which case I think I need to saw off this sticking out thing, which isn't doing me any good. I won't do it right now. Anyway, so look, we're here. We might as well get going. It's a bit of a mess now because I've just been kind of cutting things and slicing things up rather than thinking about guitars. But anyway, the thing is, I've got over there, I've got a new planer thicknesser arrived today. So that's going to get taken out at some point, but not just now. I've got some other boxes to unpack from Adam that came about a week and some ago. I've just been so busy I haven't had a chance to do it. And I think this weekend I'm going to do a bit of clearing up, reorganizing in here so I know what I'm doing. Anyway, here's the guitar, and I left it overnight and it's all good. Glue will have set in there, and really all I wanted to do today, all I can do today, most of what I can do today, is to basically set it up. So I will do that now, and then I think what I'll do after that is I will disappear off camera into, well, I suppose I could do with some bright lights, couldn't I? Yeah, I'll go off camera and do some clearing up preparatory to trying to find a home for this planer thicknesser and all manners of other things that need to be installed in here, including the spraying system. So let me just check the action down here. Wow, are we truthfully 1.5, and that's a bit high on that side. So problem is I'm going to need to, can I see what I'm doing? Yeah, I can. Those thumb wheel things aren't always the easiest things in the world to move when you're trying to do them up. Now this, at the moment, that's now a bit low. At the moment, this bridge is, the thingies, posts of this bridge aren't fixed in place, they're just dropped in, so I'll do that later on. Okay, so 1.25, something like that. Not bad. A little bit of zzz in the middle there, so I'm gonna, it's a high fret because it's not, sometimes a bit of choke here will be caused by a too flat or slightly backbowed neck. That's not the case, so it needs a little bit of fret leveling there. Okay, it's a pretty standard sort of state of affairs, so that's good. I'm going to mark up the frets and do the leveling. While everything's as is, it's still, you know, it's not the cleanest guitar in the world yet. The fingerboard is cleaner, but apart from that, everything else is still in sort of as it arrived state. So I'm just going to do sort of two halves of this. So I'm going to get straight on into the fret leveling, get the frets all done and dusted nicely, and then we can strip it all down and I can be prepared for the repair stuff next week on the finish. And of course, to get that, it's quite a lengthy, time-consuming process to use this glue boost. I probably mentioned it yesterday when I was doing this, but you have to kind of fill the hole, or have to paint and fill, whichever technique you're using. Sometimes I think what we'll probably do is mix up some black glue boost material, so we may not need paint, but we may still put a layer of paint or color at the bottom of the holes just to cover the wood up, and then we're going to fill it with a black glue boost mixture, which will eventually, we've got an accelerator solution which is bloody expensive. It's about 15, 16 more quid, 20 quid or something for a tiny little can, which to be honest will be all used up in this one repair. So it's really expensive, but it works really well in my experience. So yeah, so I'm going to fill with the black glue boost stuff, and when we get to the point it's flush above, or not above flush, it'll be slightly proud of the surface, then we have a job of basically scraping it back using craft knife blades and sort of masking tape, green tape, to create a sort of a limited sized blade, which will do limited amount of damage to anywhere else. And then we'll scrape back the repaired area. Now it's on an edge, that's more difficult. So we can probably get a smooth finish on this edge and with sandpaper, because if it was a flat surface, we can scrape and you can get a totally flat, flush finish. But on a curve, you can't do that with a flat blade. So we'll probably end up mostly sanding it back, which will end up with a glassy looking finish, but it won't necessarily be quite as flush as you would be able to get on a flat surface. Now, of course, every now and then I might have to look at this and go, gosh, what am I doing in video camera land? Oh, look, you can see me. It's not exactly that exciting a view, is it, really? It's not that much different from our friend down here. So I'll tell you what, since we don't want to just duplicate the same old thing, I'm going to take you for a, whoa, you're now really overhead. What can I actually do that's different? Well, I can sort of take you down to here. Hold on, everybody. Ah, hold on. I can't really do much more there, can I? Let's turn this round. We don't want to go any further down. Let's try and take you that way. Oh, now I can see anyway what's going on, but that's not a terribly fabulous view. So what if I go there? Well, that's not even that good, is it? So the problem with all of these camera angles is I can't really get much beyond what I can already see. You know, it's limited. I've got limited backup room. I could go right over there by the pillar drill and we'd get ourselves a nice long shot. But in a way, it doesn't really work that well. Now, I've managed, oh no, I put it there. Let's leave it there for now. It's not the long shot. It's not the same view as the Sony up there. Just have to try it out. And that's you know, partly why all these years I've kind of kept to the Sony, because it's a get out of jail kind of camera. You just, wide angle, you just point it and get on with your work. So anyway, so let's get on with this. So I'm gonna level this out and clear up any issues. Now I'm kind of expecting to see a high fret somewhere in the middle there, or could be actually a low fret, which is causing one of them to look high. I think I found the low frets right there, those two, which is where we had the buzz. And I said, oh, that sounds like we've got a high fret or something. No, I thought it might be because the neck was back bowed, but it isn't. It's caused by a low fret, and it makes the following ones high, relatively speaking. There's a couple of low ones there as well. So this big old neck is not completely smoothly curved, but it's not unusual. And I have to say, I'm pleased to say, I also don't think it's because of the stress that it went under in its difficult journey here. I think it's more just likely to be the result of the natural kind of distortions of wood. A tiny bit more at that end, but not bad at all. Yeah, I don't think it is the problems from packaging and being bashed, although, you know, clearly it has been stressed, but thankfully the wood of the neck, being flexible, has flexed rather than snapped, which is, I suppose, something to be grateful for. And of course, in doing that, while the wood may be flexible, the finish isn't. Good, that's nice. Yeah, so the finish isn't flexible, so that cracks very easily under any strain. So it doesn't have to have been a huge load. You know, it probably wasn't a human being standing on the box, but whatever whatever loads were placed on top of it, almost certainly will do. As anyone who's kindly gone into one of those discussions on guitar forums about the do's and don'ts of, you know, or the evils of couriers, you'll often see I think there's a UPS video or UPS video posted which shows the automated system in their Atlanta center, and it shows how the boxes and so on are treated. You know, and it's in that video, that's their publicity video, you know, and it's certainly not going to show them being thrown around kind of violently. However, you can still see them kind of tumbling and bouncing off each other because their box is on an automated sorting device, so you know they're going to get knocked about. So that's what you've got to pack for, my good people. Anyway, I bore everyone with the sound of my voice when it comes to talking about packaging, because you know the reason I go on about it is not because I think it's a, you know, it's not like I deserve a medal because I package well or anything like that. What I think that's really important is it's getting your responsibilities in the right priority order. So often if you're a guitar tech, you'd be forgiven for thinking, you know, your principal responsibility is to do a really great setup, or you know, in one sense you could say, well, of course that surely is your primary responsibility. But actually, in a weird sort of way, there is one greater responsibility that you have. And if you get that one wrong, it doesn't matter how good a setup you gave the guitar. And of course, that is getting the guitar back to the owner in perfect condition. Because if you don't, you might as well have sort of not set it up at all if it comes back broken. So in a funny sort of counterintuitive way, they're kind of joint equal at least, or if not, you know, technically the making sure it gets back safely is sort of more important almost of the two, and which is why I make a fairly big deal about packaging, and I can be a bit of a pain in the backside when some people say, look, I've sent you the guitar, already packed it, and you go to them, well, I appreciate that, and we might consider it that you were lucky that it got there. I mean, you know, maybe, without being critical, maybe it was part luck and it's part good packaging, but for my peace of mind, I'm not going to apologize that I need to do some other things to it so I can go to sleep tonight and not worry. And some people can take that the wrong way, particularly, you know, they'll have spent some money on some packaging materials which I might throw away or downgrade to reuse a spiller material in a larger box on some other project. And it's just purely because I have to remind them that, you know, there is only one responsibility I'm thinking of at this point, and that is getting your guitar back to you in the state that you want it to come back. The one thing I'm not going to do is take any risks, and I'm not going to mess with the system that I already know works from experience. You know, so some people will say things like, oh, I can get a cheaper courier than you because my brother works in the industry, so I'll get it picked up by, I don't know, Parcel Earwig or something, one of those, you know, what do you call them, aggregator things. And I will say, with all respect, if you're just doing that to save a few quid, then you're putting me in a very nervous position that I don't like to be in just for the sake of a couple of quid. And I really don't advise you do that. And it's very rare that happens, but if I find myself having that conversation with a customer, I know we've already taken a wrong fork down the road slightly. And I have to try and back up with the customer on board. And the recent situation actually showed that that wasn't possible. And actually, I won't go into any detail, but I knew actually within the first email out of 200 nearly that went on in the space of a week for a single setup. Yes, that's 200 emails. But I knew, the point was, I knew from the first one or two that actually this person was not a customer for me, and doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them or they shouldn't go and get a service somewhere else. But So if there's one thing you can expect or hope to learn in all those years doing business, that is to learn to know when someone is your customer and when they aren't. And if you don't learn that in your several, in my case, 6 or 7 years, well, I've been doing it in business a lot longer, but 6 or 7 years doing this, if you don't learn to recognize the occasions when that person really is not your customer, then you're going to be in trouble more often than you need to be. It's one of the most important things as a small or any size business, and within that, to actually occasionally to walk away, and that's the bit I have found difficult. I'm actually very good at recognizing when somebody probably isn't matched to my offering, even if sometimes, and this is what, if you've been in business, you'll know exactly what this feels like. Even if they continue to insist they are, and you're sort of trying to suggest that perhaps it's not the best, you know, perhaps they might get a better thing more suited to them somewhere else, and they continue to want to be your customer. And that the really difficult part then is how you, and I don't mean this in a nasty way, but how you fire, inverted commas, that customer, sack the customer, you know, so that you don't stay involved in that deal, because it's not good for you, and actually it's completely not good for them. And that's the, I'm saying this in a coded way, and if the person involved with the situation I'm referring to is watching this, they'll know exactly what I mean, or they'll know exactly what I mean. And that actually gives me no great joy to say that I lost out massively in that interaction, which should never have gone ahead, and the person lost out because they feel bad about it. Probably to this day, I've let go of it because I did the best I could do, and that's the one thing I always pride myself on being able to do. But the mistake I made, and the thing I find difficult, is how you actually, how one acts on that knowledge that one has when your not instinct, it's not even the right word, but your experience is telling you that this isn't good thing to be doing. So yeah, it's I won't say any more than that, but it's a very important thing. And so, like I said, I'm very kind of proud of knowing that aspect of how to market my own business. But the one bit that clearly you've got some learning to do on is how to walk away at a certain point before it goes too far. It's quite interesting that the same applies in big corporate business too. When I worked up in London in corporate stuff, I was very keen on my directors and colleagues not taking business that wasn't right, that clearly wasn't our customer, and a director of a business who's responsible for paying a load of salaries every month and paying the rent on the office and all of that, can be forgiven for feeling like they don't have the luxury to get into that nicety. That I was told many a time that I need to stop being so idealistic, if you like, and be a bit more commercial, hard-nosed. And actually, I get it. I totally understand the pressures, because I was under those pressures where I was, could see them at first hand. But I still to this day think it's a mistake to say, well, because we're under pressure, we will go and do this thing that in an ideal world we wouldn't do, because we'd know that it wasn't right for our company. So to me, it seems to me that it's all about if you can hold to that when the situation is difficult. What I'm looking for some blades. Where have they gone? Yeah, it's a principle that you hold to isn't really a principle if you only hold to it while things are going good, or while there's plenty of money sloshing around. You've got to be able to apply that principle when it feels entirely like you can't afford to do it because money's tight, the bills are looming and all that sort of stuff. To me, that's when you prove to yourself, but also importantly to your prospective customers and your actual customers. That's the time where you have to prove what it is that you actually stand for and why it matters. And I've always been quite big on that, particularly around being matched to somebody and being able to provide what somebody wants. I mean, for example, one of the things I've always been very clear about is if somebody comes to me for a setup and then is arguing about the cost of postage, I don't mean it in a sort of like I've got so much money I don't care about what things cost to post and therefore I map it onto you. But actually, when somebody comes to me for a setup and I say to them, somewhere along the line, I say, I've had 800 successful courier sends using my packaging method, and this to get this back to you in guaranteed, almost statistically guaranteed to get back to you in one piece is going to cost £25, of which £17.50 goes on the 24-hour parcel force thing, and the small remainder goes on to bubble wrap, lots of bubble wrap. I mean, professional industrial strength bubble wrap, large bike packaging cardboard, to make sure everything gets back perfectly in one piece. Now, that doesn't take into account the time spent doing it, which takes over an hour to pack it and to do all the booking and stuff, so on and so on and so on. So the point is, somebody who knows what I do doesn't have to have that explained, and they don't seek to save a couple of quid. And one of the biggest, and it's the same for any business, one of the biggest signs you can get is when somebody's haggling over a small amount of money, which, as I say, kind of immediately shows that their focus, no, there's nothing wrong with it, it just shows their focus is on something else, and usually that's a couple of quid. And I have to say, and I've said this from the very beginning, and I used to say it in the business I worked in London, if a customer of ours in the business I was in, corporate stuff I was in, if they were having to ask about cutting percentages off the fee or the costs that we laid out, then their attention was on the money, not the specific outcome that we were confident that we delivered. And that's the secret of it. If you are very confident in the outcome that your service delivers, you don't get into haggling, because there's no good reason to haggle. Because if you haggle, all that at best can happen is that you lose, you devalue what you're offering, and somebody gets it at a price that devalues you slightly. You don't feel good about it, and actually they feel £2.50 worth of good, and actually they've already demonstrated that they're not focused on the thing you do add value with, they're focused on saving some money. And it sounds like a subtlety, but it is the difference between offering a service in a sort of price war environment, or offering an outcome or a value based thing that you're very clear and confident on the value you add. So at certain points along the way, somebody asks you, oh, well, could I not have that bit of the deal? And you're thinking, right, well, why would you not be wanting that bit of the deal when I've told you I have to do X, Y, and Z in order to deliver the low light action without chokes and buzzes, and which stays in tune. So if you're wanting a bit shaved off that, it sounds like, which is entirely you're entitled to be, but it sounds like your primary focus, your attention, is on a budget at the moment, such that you'd want to reduce the cost. Okay, but that's not necessarily the way I work best, or certainly I can't offer you the outcome. I can't guarantee the outcome that I like to be able to guarantee, if you're focused on cost. So, and the point of that is, really, the minute somebody is haggling about the cost of something, in my world, I'm in the wrong, you know, we're going down the wrong road already. And I know that, I guess some people have been brought up to think that, well, that's what you do, you haggle over prices, and you know, if you don't, you're a pushover. Well, maybe that may be if you think that everything's just stacked up against everything else as being, you know, all the same much of a muchness. But I don't offer my services with that from that standpoint. You know, there are lots of people who are offering setups for 35, 40 quid. In fact, some people offer even less than that because they want to get started and it suits them to, you know, to offer it for almost nothing. You know, that's I can't predict how they survive and manage their money, but you know, it doesn't take a genius to work out that if somebody's, you know, if somebody's undercutting you because they've got no overheads or something, then, well, that's great. But they, you know, if they were on an even playing field, they wouldn't be able to do that. And the other thing is, most of the people that offer a £30 setup I've seen don't include the precision fret leveling, or don't go near fret leveling, because it's a time-consuming, precise thing to do, and you couldn't make a living or profit. You couldn't survive doing 3 hours of work for £40 or £35, no matter how good it made you feel to undercut other people in the neighbourhood. That only keeps you for so long getting business because you're the cheapest. Anyway, so it's an interesting thing, but like I said, I'm pretty good at marketing actually, and I know what I'm doing most of the time. But one thing I have to learn to do better, and that is to walk away when the customer isn't my customer. You know, and like I said, it's not just for my sake alone, it's for their sake too, because the experience that my customer and I had a week or so ago wasn't pleasant for either of us. And whilst I know I'm in the right about it, inverted commas, it doesn't mean I don't care about other people's experience, which any of you who know me will know that I do. Even if I am right, I also care about other people's feelings and points of view. Because funnily enough, I can do both things. I can be right about something and be empathetic, empathic, or whatever the word would be. Anyway, so yeah, so know your customer and learn how to walk away when somebody isn't your customer before you get into a difficult relationship that neither of you wants to be in, if the truth be known. And truth be known, neither of you deserve to be in, because, you know, like I said, if somebody's in the market just on price, there's nothing wrong with that. That's entirely okay for them to be that person at that time. If it's about price. I'm not saying the issue was particularly only about price just recently, but you know, if it is, then you know, people are entitled to be on a budget and concerned about what they've got to spend. But it's a bit like the sort of, I suppose, you know, the diamond ring salesperson, is that, you know, if you know somebody's on a budget, or a Lamborghini salesperson, you know, if you know somebody's on a budget, you wouldn't lead them up the path with offering them you know, the Lamborghini or the Cartier ring, because it's just, you know, if it wasn't within their budget, then it wouldn't do them any good to be trying to afford it and then getting into difficulties. Anyhow, so okay, so look, what we've done is leveled the frets. Now I need to mark them up and crown them, which I'll do now. That was just to shape off their nut at both ends, which is now done. It's funny enough, you notice I used the Dremel mostly, and a bit of other things. Being able to handle that, that's an old Crimson fret rocker that I've repurposed as a sanding surface, but for certain bits, for example on this edge, I can get a very close cut using the Dremel sanding drum, which would probably strike you as a bit of a lethal tool to use in this context. You know, you're frightened you'd hit the finish. Well, for some reason, holding it like that, supporting it, gives me plenty of control. I'm not so confident on this edge, which is why I put it up and did that, but I can see I'm touching the green tape, and that's absolutely perfect. I haven't, you know, I've been able to do it without going anywhere near the finish. So it's whatever gets you through the night is all right. It's all right. You know, you get used to, or you build up a sort of sense of what you can do well and what you can't. Some people will see me doing something like that and go, "Oh my God, he's not taking a Dremel to this end of my whatever guitar." And the point being is, you do what you've got confidence in to get to where you've got to get to, and if you've got confidence in it, you'll do it well. And if you've got confidence in it, it's because you've done it tons of times before and you know how to make it work for the job at hand. So it's always worth keeping that in mind when you see somebody doing something that's unusual to you. There was a provocative one I put up a while back, video showing me hacksawing a nut on a Gibson, was it Gibson? I can't remember now. Down the centre, no, it must have been a Strat style guitar, hacksawing it, because the only way sometimes to get the nut off out of a very tight fitting slot is to cut it centrally and then break in the edges to clear them out of the way. And it looks terrifying to use a hacksaw, you know, if somebody looks at it objectively from outside, but it's perfectly doable. And in fact, the hacksaw is the perfect tool for it. It just looks like you wouldn't want to use a hacksaw on it. Okay, so I'm just now, I'm now just recrowning these frets, just to take the squared off shoulders away, so that we get them back to as much of a fret shape as I can get to without lowering them in any way. These frets, I'd say, are not brand new on this guitar, so that I wouldn't want to have done too many more levelings on this because it's been played. But it was enough material to get a good result out of this. If you compared the amount of time I'm spending on this to a couple of recent guitars, even for example last night I did Michael's Esquire Bullet Mustang, I'm taking longer already on these, recrowning these frets, because I have levelled harder on these than I did on the Mustang, but it's not an awful lot harder. I'm moving along fairly quickly. Down because it's quite a thick, tall guitar. that's what you do. End up shoving it under there. These little marks are on here. It's funny, it's almost like somebody's marked it with marker pen in the past. Okay, that's that done. Clean off the dust. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is tape all of this off, followed by sanding it out, polishing it, frets that is. And once that's done, I will then move to putting some paint on there, and then I'll also drill, well, I don't know why it doesn't need it. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'll have a look again under here to see if there's a need for a ground wire to the bridge. Maybe that's something I have yet to find out, but I don't know why there doesn't seem to need it on a an active pickup guitar. Who knows? What's the view like down there, you said, looking behind? See, I can see from behind at this point. I don't need the mirror, but of course I can get kind of, you know, close-ups and whatnot. I don't quite know where the 1 point is on here. All right, scale 1 to 1. Yeah. Hey, zoom in, so you can see where I'm going to paint. A bit of black paint in there. Yep. Oh yeah, that's interesting. God, things you discover. There's a crack from here to here. Just take a quick picture of that. It's things you don't really see until later. Not necessarily a result of the transit damage, but equally could very well be. It's split, the very fine split in the lacquer or the finish. I did look closely at this joint here, which is actually not too bad. There was nothing happened there, but we have got cracks here and here as a result. But I think, you know, I think the point is Pete's going to be able to play this for a long time and it isn't going to fall apart on him. But, you know, there are cracks down here. I can see where the finish is separated out. Sort of feathered out, really, I suppose you might call it. Okay, so I'm not going to do this on camera because it's as boring as anything, but just to say I will tape off the whole of the fingerboard like so, with increasingly smaller, decreasingly large sized bits of tape. I'll go through 400 grit, 600 grit, 1000, 1500, and then I'll switch to the micro mesh sets and I'll go 1500, 2400, 2800, 3200, 3600, 4000, 6000, 8000, 12,000 grit. And then at the end of that I'll do a Dremel drum buffing wheel thing with some Autosol car polish, and then clean it all out. Being ebony, it doesn't really won't do much if I put oil on it, but I'll probably put some oil on it just to wipe it over once. but it doesn't have quite the same effect on the look as it does on something like rosewood. Okay, so I've got to put this on the other bench and cut some strips of paper to fit. So that'll be it until I come back to do, I think I'll come back when I've stripped it all down to do the buffing. Probably, yeah, it's going to require taking all the pots and everything out really. So I better make sure I know what the wiring. Oh God, look at this, completely loose. Almighty. Yeah, right. Lots of sorting out to do. Right, I shall be back in a while. Let's just put this safely on here for a second while I do the rest. Okay, see you later.